It's going to be an amazing, the 2020s is going to be the soaring 2020s of technology. One thing I would comment is, while it's the 1 billion, like there's 8, billion people on the planet, that we get the first 12%. But the other important statistic is 5 billion humans using smartphones because they have the power of all human intelligence on their phone, on this device. And there's 5 billion people using it, or 66% of the population of the world. And only the very young, the very old, or the very poor don't have a smartphone. And so I'm predicting that, this year, last year I wrote the article that added we'll have 1 billion people using AI technology.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization Show, the home of Googleization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy, never normal shift going on all around us. Our goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the ever-changing convergence of people, business, and technology. Here is your host, Ira Wolf.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization Show. Thank you for being part of Googleization Nation. I'm Ira Wolf. If you think this is just another podcast, think again. This is the voice of the most important conversations on the future of work confronting business leaders and people today. Our goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the ever-changing convergence of business, people, and technology. I'm grateful to share that once again, Avanti is sponsoring this episode of Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization. To download their 2024 Work Everywhere Work Report, go to adaptabilitytoolkit.com/2024 Everywhere Work. I'll also put that link in the show notes too. Last week on this show, I had a fascinating conversation with Ben M. Bensow about innovation and how everyone can innovate like Steve Jobs. Well, here's what innovation looks like today to my guest, Doug Hohulin. He wrote a brilliant article about 5 years ago in 2019 titled The 21st Century, the Century of the Billion and Billions. In it, he shared a few facts. In 1 year, 8 million songs were released, 2 million books were published, 30 million blog posts were written, 182 billion tweets were sent, and 400,000 new products were introduced. Each and every one of those started with an idea. And that was 4 years ago, before we all had open access to generative AI. Can you imagine what's next? Well, Doug will be joining me shortly to share more mind-boggling stats and how AI is being used for good, as in healthcare, and how we must be careful to use AI right. But now it's time to welcome Doug to the show. Doug Hohulin has a treasure trove of experience. He spent 33 years at Nokia and Motorola in strategy, business development, account management, and engineering roles. Now he's an AI technology advisor for Next Collabs and AI and Partners. He's a leader in VR, ARA, and KC, Kansas City, Digital Drive. He's all about making AI responsible and safe. His passion, using AI to create a safer healthcare system, reduce the 3 million deaths a year from medical errors, and improve patient outcomes. He's the co-author of the new book, Tech Power Healing, The Future of Medicine in the AI Age. Let's welcome Doug Hohulin to the Googleization Nation stage.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Doug. It's great to have you back. I can't believe it when I was looking through the episodes. It was almost 2 years, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, we talked about VR at the time and the future of XR and the metaverse.
Yeah, and it's still out there, right? It's still there and developing.
Yeah, it's happening. In fact, Alvin Graylin, excuse me, he wrote a book, The Next Realities, and about how AI and XR, the metaverse, are going to be supercharged. So it's going to be an amazing. The 2020s is going to be the soaring 2020s of technology, and so it's going to be a very interesting time.
But it seems like it's a lifetime ago because it's just maybe 16, 17 months now that ChatGPT was introduced.
That's correct. Yeah.
world.
Fun fact: there was when ChatGPT was introduced the same year, that same month, November 2022, was when we had 8 billion humans on the planet.
Oh, wow. So, well, you had this great article, and I know we saw it. I think we might have mentioned it last time and got into it. But I encourage everybody. I'll put a link in the show notes to it, and we'll make sure that everybody has access to it. But you talked about, as I said, the billions and billions. Here's just a snippet of it. And if we look down kind of the left side, I mean, it's almost it's over 200 years ago we reached 1 billion humans on the planet. And then about 22 years ago, 1 billion cell phones. And then again, 20 years ago, 19 years ago, I guess, a billion internet users. And we scroll down, and again, people who are listening to this, I'll make sure I put a link to this slide so that they can view it, or you can go to the article. But some of the things that just happened in the last few years. Let's see. 2011, there was 1 billion smartphone users. 2021, we reached 1 billion surveillance cameras. 2022, 1 billion humans with wearables, which is amazing. 2022, we had 8 billion humans. 2022, we also had 1 billion 5G users by the end of the year. That was your projection, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure if we reached that one or not.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Did we? Okay. And then 2024, currently, 1 billion people using digital fitness and well-being devices.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just been a wild ride. And one thing I would comment is, while it's the 1 billion, like there's 8, billion people on the planet, that we get the first 12%. But the other important statistic is 5 billion humans using smartphones, because they have the power of all human intelligence on their phone, on this device. And there's 5 billion people using it, about 33% or 66%, excuse me, of the population of the world. And only the very young, the very old, or the very poor don't have a smartphone. And so I'm excited about that statistic. So we went from, in 2011, having 1 billion people, these are the innovators, the people who, really get the technology. And then in this case, it took 11 more years to get to 5 billion people. And so I'm predicting that, last year I wrote the article that added, we'll have 1 billion people using AI technology. And we're on track for that, depending on how you count the statistics. And then, the question is, when will we have 5 billion people using AI? So when will we have abundance for the planet around artificial intelligence? And I think that's going to be within 5 years from this date. So by 2029, we'll have 5 billion people every day using AI to be more productive and to, basically save 20% of their time every day of knowledge, information, to organize that information so that it can be very useful for that individual.
There's so many applications for this, which I know we're going to get into, especially with healthcare. But you did answer one of the questions that I was going to ask, is what's the significance of 1 billion? Because it's a massive number, and obviously it represents 12%, about 15% of the planet. But is 1 billion considered the tipping point? Because it's then again only 12%. What's to say that it won't? That's not the peak. It's not just a fad, and then
Right.
and it goes away. So we're looking at it that it's just this continuous rising curve. Is this the angle of the exponential curve that shoots up, or is 1 billion? What's the significance? How do you put that in perspective?
Well, the unicorns are $1 billion companies, so it seems like 1 billion starts to mean is meaningful, yeah. Right? That in technology and the number of users and so forth. And, like in 1802, when we had 1 billion humans on the planet, all of a sudden, then, we had this incredible industrial revolution going on. And so I was thinking, it got to me thinking that 1 billion is a good place marker of saying that, hey, this is really being a significant factor to humanity and to technology. And so then it's like, okay, given this billion, how does that happen? And then the 5 billion is when we get to, where basically everyone other than the very young, very old, or the very poor doesn't have this technology available to them. And by the way, then my goal is to go to where we have abundance for all. So everyone who wants to have this technology can have this technology as well.
So what's your vision? And so that's a great point. So when we talk about abundance, and I know there's a a whole family, a whole community of people that are looking to this, and then each time it goes back that technology was supposed to free up our time. I mean, if we go back to when we were younger,
Right.
with that was the benefit of technology, that it would make us more productive, it would give us more free time, and yet we have the highest rates of mental illness. People are stressed, they're anxious about this, and in the past, the technology didn't necessarily allow us to. It allowed us more enjoyments of life, but it seemed that we had more pressures, driven by corporations and capitalism. It just made people busier,
Right.
if they will.
Right. And so, the smartphone, the internet, these are all very powerful tools, and any powerful tool in AI, they can either be used very powerfully for good or for harm. And so that's what, thinking about, how do we educate, how do we train people to use these tools that they know how to use them properly? There's videos, there's training out there on the social dilemma, the AI dilemma, where people are harmed because of social media. People are harmed because of AI. In fact, you talked about the politics. I don't know if you saw that there was a robocalling of an AI Joe Biden. And the person who did that is now getting I think it's a $6 million fine. And, he can go to jail for doing that. And then I think there was the company that actually did that, let them use this AI robocalling, I think has a $2 million fine. We can put that in the show notes as well. So, it's like, how do you use these tools properly? One, the first rule of thumb is don't do anything that can get you into jail, right? Or pay millions of dollars of fine. Right. And that's where, like I talk about working on AI projects where the AI systems have to be right, whether it's in healthcare. We don't want to kill people or harm people. First do no harm. Road safety or autonomous vehicles, like as we roll out AI into autonomous vehicles, how do we make that? Governance and policy. As you're rolling out this technology, how do you make sure that you're using these tools properly, where you're not going to move fast, break things, but have to pay lots of fines? So in fact, if we want, we can talk a little bit about the EU AI Act, where now that's in place. And, the winner of the GDPR of Europe, of data privacy, of the largest fine is 1.2 billion euros. Speaking of a billion, from Meta Facebook, because they weren't following the rules. So, it's very critical that, whether you're doing it for robocalling, deep fakes, whatever, that you understand what you're doing. And, if you do something illegal, whether you're using an AI tool or you're just using a non-AI tool, if you're doing it illegal, you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And just you brought up about deep fakes, and then our show tomorrow, and we're talking about politics and technology and what can go wrong with this, and people are concerned, just as they were with Biden's deep fake. But Sam Rad, when I saw her a few weeks ago at the Avanti Summit, she gave the keynote, and she showed a video, and it was a video of her. Except it wasn't during the pandemic. She sat down and she created what she called Sam Rad 2.0.
Right.
Yeah. And you're watching the video. She's talking, she's explaining, she's doing her thing on the video while she's on stage. And it was, as she said, it was Sam Rad 2.0.
Exactly.
It was
people are creating their digital twins where they can engage with it.
Yeah, you couldn't tell. I guess that's one way we could be more productive, that we can send our digital twin to work and get paid, and we wouldn't have to do it. But there are always bad actors, and again, we can talk a little bit about that. But I think let's talk about some of the things that people fear. One is jobs, but the other is when you talk about the good that could come out of it. You mentioned about the vehicles, and I don't know if you know these stats offhand, but you shared a few examples with me of how AI Although people fear the Teslas and these self-driving autonomous vehicles, they hear, the one accident, the one death. But there is so much more benefit that can come from that. When, we take, for example, every single day we know someone's in an accident. We read in the papers, we see in the news that someone's injured, and many times it's, someone we know. It could be a family member, a neighbor. It happens all the time, and how AI and technology could help us, could help eliminate that. So let's talk about that a little bit. I think that's one of the everyday uses for it.
Right. Yeah. 1.2 million people die every year around the world. 46,000 here in the United States die through traffic accidents. And unfortunately, the numbers have gone up. In 2014, it was 36,000, and we've increased it by a factor, another 10,000 people. And these accidents, they're not accidents. They're tragedies, and they don't need to happen, right? An accident is something that it may, we don't think it should happen or shouldn't happen, right? These are things that we can avoid. And so the question is how do we use this technology to ensure that we're using it for good? Now, one of the reasons the death rate has gone up is people are speeding more. They're driving more distracted. Pedestrians, we want people to bike more, walk more. But, I kind of joke that, if you're in downtown New York City walking or riding a bike, you're kind of like a wounded gazelle on the Serengeti plains, right? You have these trucks and cars driving around, and you can have accidents. So, this is, this mix of technology with human experience could get more dangerous before it gets better. But that said, the risk and what's happening, just 3 technologies of AI, which is blind spot monitoring, emergency braking systems, and blind spot. And lane keeping technology can save 10,000 lives a year in the United States. So if we can roll out this technology gradually to improve safety, but this is a good example. If you say, okay, well, now I have an emergency braking system, so I can start reading a book when I'm driving. No, that's not using the technology properly. And so you need to know the limits, the guardrails of the technology, and say, okay, as long as I'm doing this, I'm driving safer. But if I start reading books, or there's videos of people playing a ukulele or in the backseat of the car, that makes it more dangerous. In fact, Tesla got in trouble because they weren't monitoring their drivers as they're using this technology. So they've updated that. So if you're not having your 2 hands on the wheel, remember when you take driver's ed, they're saying keep your 2 hands on the wheel, pay attention. If you're not doing that, Tesla will yell at you and say, hey, please put your hands on the wheel. And so my car, I have a newer Toyota, and the same thing is, I have to keep my hands on the wheel, or even though I have lane keeping and I have adaptive cruise control, I need to be engaged. I need to be the captain of the car, as opposed, and there's a co-pilot, right? There's a co-pilot doing it, but I'm the captain. I'm in charge of the safety of the vehicle until, for the next 10 years, we're going to be that way.
And to me, and I was going to ask you about that, because as you're talking, people are keeping their cars longer because we're able to, because of technology, they last longer. We've got, we have multiple cars, but the 2 that we use primarily, one's a 2016, one's a 2017. They're both in excellent condition. One only has 60,000 miles on it. The one does have the lane monitoring, but it doesn't have the anticipatory brakes, so we're going to have those vehicles hopefully for a few more years, while all these other vehicles are the newer vehicles that you purchase have all these new sensors and this new technology. So we're in this, we're in this paradigm shift, where we have the old with the new, and again, just as one of the biggest challenges that I find is in my car I have the lane sensing. In our other car, we don't.
Right.
So you get used to that technology, It's like, well, if I weave or if I, I'm not doing it intentionally, but you get used to listening to the beep or to the light
Exactly.
flashing, and then you go into a vehicle that doesn't have it, and I don't know if you get careless or or it's just the subconscious, but there's all these challenges, and I didn't think about it that way, but it seems like for the next 10 or 20 years, maybe 20 years, we're going to have old vehicles on the road and new vehicles on the road.
Right. I mean, this is again goes back to education, and we can talk about education and AI and healthcare as well. But making sure that you're using the you understand the guardrails of the technology. What's the safety envelope of anything? And as you're using this technology. But yeah, absolutely. Well, in fact, I haven't seen a study on this, but I would predict that people who have manual shifting versus automatic, the manual shifting, it forces you to pay more attention to the road. In fact, someone, I don't know who, joked that, if you had a cup of coffee in your hand, you'd be a much safer driver because if you do anything wrong, the coffee,
especially a McDonald's coffee, right?
Yeah, especially McDonald's coffee. So, in the sense is, we use this technology to hopefully make it safer, make it easier to use, to drive. But if you if you're not in control of the technology and you say, okay, I'm just going to let the AI do it, you're actually causing a more dangerous system.
Okay. So I definitely want to get into the healthcare and education, but let's talk about one of the fears that people have. The biggest fear that people have, and it's about AI is going to take away all the jobs.
Right.
I've been saying for as long as I've been talking about this, that it's going to change it's going to change jobs. It's going to change the way we work, but it's not going to eliminate work, and it's not going to eliminate jobs. Certain jobs will be eliminated, but mostly it's going to change what we do on a daily basis. So I'm still doing what I did 10 years ago and 20 years ago. I'm still writing content. I'm still working with assessments. I'm still working with clients. I had a podcast in 2010. I'm still podcasting, but the technology changed the way I did it. It didn't eliminate me from doing it, and it didn't eliminate me getting paid to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. If a job is dirty, dangerous, difficult, or dull, give that to the AI, because I don't think most humans want to compete for those kinds of jobs. Right. But
except for people that's what they've done. That's all they know. That's their identity. I mean, going into mines is their identity. Working those dirty, dull, dangerous jobs is their identity.
Yeah, but what John Henry was a steel driving man, right? And where he was competing against the steam shovel. But I would argue that the people who are digging with shovels would much rather. I would, at least for me, I'd much rather be in a bulldozer. Now the thing is it's easy. No one needs a lot of training to pick up a shovel and start digging. But people need lots of training to know how to use a steam shovel, right, or a bulldozer, or so forth, right? Yeah, if I got in a bulldozer, I'd cause a lot more problems, and if you give me a shovel, I won't cause that many problems, right? And that's why AI technology amplifies either the good or the bad, right? And so the thing is this is where in fact the Biden administration talks a lot about this on how to use AI properly. Is that there's a lot of training needed involved, right? To say, okay, what job are you currently doing, and how can AI aid that to help you amplify your ability and to help you be more productive?
So, what's your advice? I mean, I'm teaching and again, because it's an innovation and entrepreneurship course or change management, leadership. I mean, we're talking about these things and how to use those, but I'm also, as an adjunct, I mean, I'm also here from all the other faculty and just in education. It doesn't have to be at the postgraduate or the post-secondary level, but secondary schools and even down the elementary schools of when do you introduce these tools to people? And I've always said one is that's the future. We need to teach people how to use tools that they'll need to use in the future versus going back and learning calligraphy. learning
Exactly.
handwriting. I mean, there's some reasons and some disciplines to learn how to do that. But there's a huge controversy, and there's a lot of resistance for that. And to me, it's doing a disservice to say you can't use it. But what do you see happening? Where does this all fall?
Right. And in fact, I give talks to high school students. I have a friend who's an English teacher, senior English teacher, that talks about the brave new world, and they have to write an essay about new tech, where's the future of the world going? And so I've for like 5 years, I've gone in to talk about this, the technology, and he doesn't want to use AI, right? For this, though, I think spell checking is okay, right? And grammar checking is okay, but Grammarly AI is not okay, right? So he has different levels. Now, personally, if I was a student in his class, in fact, I need to talk to him about this, I would write 3 essays. I would give him, okay, here's your rules, right? Here that I can't, I can't use AI for this. So this is what I'll do just myself. Then the second one is I will use AI 90% of the time. And, it's just like kind of regurgitate, right? It's like, okay, here's the essay that AI gives. And then my third essay I'll give him is, one where I am using collaboration with the AI. So it's 50% me, 50% of the AI, and hopefully get a much better essay. And, and actually what I do is I write a 4th essay, maybe I'm an overachiever, but I would say, okay, this is what I learned through this process. So this is what I wrote the first time, that you're going to grade me because, I get an F if I use the AI according to your rules. But the second one is like, okay, this is what the AI did without me doing much, right? But the third one is the collaboration between AI and myself. And then what did I learn new? What things did I learn that I didn't know about? Because at the end of the day, education is all about learning, right? Just writing an essay is, if you don't learn about writing the essay, who cares, right? So it's a process of what am I learning through that process? And so, so maybe write a 4th essay that says, this is what I've learned on this. Now, if I was a teacher, what I would do is when a student gives me an essay, I'd say, okay, I'm going to put that into ChatGPT. And I say, create a quiz, right? Of 10 questions based on that essay, and then give it to the student. And if the student can't answer his own questions on his essay, then maybe he didn't write it or she didn't write it, right? Yeah. And so I think it's, and one thing I would talk to the students, I go, if you're just going to use this to regurgitate information and not learn anything, you're wasting your time, you're wasting my time, right? What you want to do is, learn how to use these tools so you can amplify your ability, you can learn better, you can get excited, you're learning how to learn, and just amplify your ability of the things you're interested in, and maybe the things even you're not interested in. It helps you understand things a little bit better.
Yeah, I flip that too. I think we need to have that same message for the teachers and the professors. Exactly. That they need to learn how to do that, as well. But I love that idea that you shared, and I may incorporate that into my fall curriculum of having them write 2 or 3 different versions. I'm always a big fan of after each assignment that they had, there was a reflection, and it's what did you learn? Because that was the most important to me. That was the most important part. It wasn't what they submitted, but what did they learn from preparing that submission and preparing that assignment. As I said, this show goes incredibly fast. We're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a quick break. You've been listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. I'm here with Doug Hohulin. We're talking about the future of AI. When we come back, we're going to dig into AI and healthcare, where that's going, because that's certainly Doug's passion at the moment. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Are your employees feeling stuck and just showing up for a paycheck? Is your workforce working harder to get back to normal than adapting to the future? It's time to help them break their addiction to certainty and develop a growth mindset. Developed by one of the world's top-rated future of work thought leaders, AQ Plus Mindset is a powerful tool to help your employees embrace change, adapt faster, and grow on the job. Conveniently delivered to any smartphone or laptop in easy-to-digest 5 to 10-minute lessons. Managers can sit back and watch employee attitude shift towards growth and innovation in just 30 days. Are you ready to help your employees thrive in this ever-changing, never-normal world? Encourage them to show more grit, resilience, adaptability, and unlock their potential? The journey to a growth-filled future starts with a growth mindset. Visit aqplusmindset.com or call 484-373-4300.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. Today's guest is Doug Hohulin. We're talking about the future of AI, how we're reaching billions and billions. Just his name just went out.
Harvey Castro.
No. Who used to talk about the stars? The
Oh, Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan, yeah. Sounds like we're talking about Carl Sagan here, but
yeah. In fact,
he
he said, I never said billions and billions because it's too imprecise, right? And then he actually wrote a book, Billions and Billions, because of Johnny Carson. So he was on the Johnny Carson show, but he introduced the thought about billions, because in the 70s, a billion was a big number. Now it's trillions and then quadrillions and so forth. We're getting to the big numbers now.
We absolutely are. So let's get into your book. So there's a new book, The Future of Medicine, Tech Healed Powering in the Age of AI, or AI Age. Even before I knew you were writing this, one of the things that I was always hear is all the reasons we shouldn't be using AI, and it's destroying humanity. All this technology, I hate it. They hate, it's probably the 5 billion or the few billion people who don't have a smartphone yet that aren't one of those. But one of the challenges I always had, I said, do you know anybody that's been impacted with dementia? A friend, family,
absolutely, yes.
Neighbor, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, diabetes, and everybody in the audience will always say, "Oh yeah, absolutely, I do." I said, if you could have a cure in the next 12 months rather than the next 12 years or 12 decades because of AI, would you be willing to allow people to use AI in its development? I never get a no. Of course they would. So it's that we hear, it's like, oh, it's going to change the way I work. It's going to change this, or I don't understand it, or I hate this. But if it could cure cancer, it could prevent or cure dementia, or prevent it, Alzheimer's, diabetes, Parkinson's, I'm good.
Right. Yeah, and that's what the hope is. One thing is, and I saw Dr. Harvey Castro is actually listening. I see he put a note in. So welcome, Dr. Castro. In fact, I was honored that he asked me to co-write the book with him. So I talked about technology. I mean, that's my background, bringing 5 billion smartphones, bringing all the cellular networks to the world. And, and then the future technology, self-driving cars. And I'm also on the KU School of Nursing Advisory Board on technology. So I'm a technologist. And then this collaboration with, Dr. Castro, who's an ER doctor. He's written like 11 books on AI and healthcare. And, so it was an honor to write with him on this. But yeah, there's so much opportunity. I guess a couple of things I would say is, is this going to be, revolutionary, or is this going to be incremental? And I think the answer is both. There's going to be, just like drugs. I have a friend who has chronic myelogenous leukemia, and her life expectancy would have been less than 5 years with the former treatment. But then in 2001, a drug called Gleevec came out that, basically your life expectancy is the same, whether you have CML or not. So, that's a revolutionary drug. But other drugs are just incrementally changing improvement. So there will be times where AI will have a significant improvement, and then there'll be times where it's just going to be small incremental steps. And but in the next 10 to 20 years, will we solve disease, right? And that's the fundamental question. Now, the key thing here, and the president of the American Medical Association highlights this, is that the doctor is still in control. So this is just like a tool, like any other tool. But if the doctor is using this tool, they're still responsible for that tool. And if bad things happen, just like you're the driver of the car, you're using these AI tools to help you drive better. But if something bad happens, especially if you're using it outside the scope of the envelope of the tool, then you're responsible for that. So, so doctors, clinicians, nurses need to realize, what is safe and effective, and then what is outside that. And I need to keep the clinician in control, right? The human in the loop, and they're responsible for the patient's care and safety.
So what are some of the biggest changes you see in the next 3 to 5 years on a shorter horizon because of AI? And again, I know to some degree AI was involved, and I know this could be controversial for some people, but for the COVID vaccine. I mean, normally a vaccine takes 10 to 12 to 15 years to come to market.
Right.
And here it was 6 to 9 months in development.
Right. And for the old people over 60, that vaccine was fantastic. The data is a little bit less for people under that.
Right.
But like my mom, I was really pleased that, when people in nursing homes, that was critical to have that vaccine so quickly.
Absolutely.
And it saved so many lives. So, that's, again, it's like, when are these a very powerful tool? When do you use this tool for help and not harm?
But doesn't that get, sorry to interrupt, but that's so important what you just said, that over 60, under 60, the personalization of drugs rather than going to the doctors and everybody gets the same antibiotic. If you have dementia, everybody gets a similar care, or hey, we have a new miracle drug, but it may not be effective based on gender, based on ethnicity, based on age, to be able to personalize that drug. One is the matching of that, but also the personalization of whether it's the medication or the dosage of the medication, based on who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's two numbers to look at for any intervention. It's the number to treat, to help, and the number to harm, right? So, like I'm allergic to sulfa. So if I take a sulfa drug, that drug that could treat and help someone would harm me. For example, people are allergic to penicillin. So it's a wonder drug for those who aren't allergic, but for those who are allergic, and that's somewhere between 1% and 10%. And so these are examples, like, first do no harm. But if you can personalize it, and humans tend to, they think, okay, if it's good for one person, it's good for everyone. Well, no, it isn't necessarily. That's why you need to personalize medicine, as you said.
Yeah, imagine. A lot of the controversy, I'm sure all of it would not have gone away, but imagine the benefit of if AI was more advanced, or if we understood how to utilize it, even with the rollout of the vaccine.
Right.
Who should get it, what dosage should be altered, who's it going to benefit the most? And there are people that are probably right that they shouldn't have taken it, or it was too much, or not enough.
Right. Yeah, and you hear different stories, different information from different people, right? And different people have different agendas, right? And this is the challenge with AI is, are you getting the accurate information, right? And
right.
Garbage in, garbage out is one of the challenges of this AI tool.
Yeah. But hopefully, with the right information, then we're able to solve that problem versus just continuing to suffer with it.
Exactly. Yeah. The clinician, the doctors in the loop, that they're responsible for this tool, and so they have all their years of experience, and they oversee the AI. So, this is a very smart, you think of, for doctors out there, think of this as a very smart resident, but they're still in training, or, medical student, right? They're very smart, but they don't have experience, and they can do very bad things if they're not guided properly.
So what are some of the things that we're going to see 3 to 5 years from now?
Yeah. So one thing is education. 50% of people don't follow their treatment plan, and it causes, in the United States, according to the CDC, is 125,000 people a year die because they don't follow their treatment plan. So I'm really excited for healthcare education. And so the question is can we use this information? In fact, Dr. Castro created a GPT that what it does is you put in your information. In fact, I wrote a blog about this. And, so I had an eye infection, and I said, okay, the doctor said this, and let me get some, and they said that there could be an autoimmune problem. And it's like, okay, I asked, okay, what percent of the people have an autoimmune problem? And then I said, okay, if I went to a rheumatologist, what should I be thinking about? So I am much better educated about going to either my, primary care doctor or a rheumatologist, to do this. I have a friend who's a nurse, and, she's a retired nurse, and, she's like, okay, do you really want to do this if you don't have any other symptoms? Because, it's a lot of testing, and 70% of people may, not present with,
it's the medical school. Disease. Yeah. It's a medical student syndrome.
Exactly.
The infirmaries and the hospitals and the ERs always knew when they were teaching a certain subject in medical school or dental school or veterinary school or any healthcare, because there was always an uptick in people coming reporting all these symptoms.
Yeah, the definition of a healthy person is someone who hasn't been tested enough. If I keep testing you, I will find something wrong with you. And so, but education, like, how can I have, what are some of the 10 things I'm, in my health, right? My mom has, she's 87. So she has 10 things that are different than my 10 things. And then, like, okay, what can I do today to improve my health today? Right. My 10 things are different than my mom's, different than someone else who has, cancer or what other disease. So, tools like Dr. Castro had, where you can get better education. Those with high medical literacy live 10 to 15 years longer than those with low medical literacy. So, can you have better conversations with your doctor? The other thing AI can do is reduce clinician burnout. Doctors and nurses are really burned out, and they don't need to worry about losing their jobs, because actually what we need more doctors and nurses. And so can AI, help with electronic medical records? Here in Kansas City, I'm part of Kansas City Digital Health group, and one medical doctor in the Kansas City health system talks about they have 200 doctors using, where what they do is they use their cell phone, and when the patient's talking, they come in and it's recording the entire conversation with the patient. And then after the conversation is done, it then summarizes it keeps a transcript. So if the doctor wants to hear the raw conversation, they can. And then it would have the summary of it, and then put it into the EMR with the notes. So the average clinician spends about 3 hours a day dealing with electronic medical records. Doctors use twice as much time on keyboard time than they do on patient time. And so we need to flip that. And so can we use AI to deal with all that? Now, one thought I had was, and this is using Dr. Castro's solution, is so you have an AI for the doctor, right? He's capturing from a doctor's perspective. But then you have an AI, your own personal AI, that captures, this is what I'm concerned about, right? Here are my 10 things I'm concerned about, and making sure that my AI is communicating properly with the doctor's AI, to kind of overlap and say, okay, are we connected, right? Because there's times where the doctor, in fact, like the president of the American Medical Association said, they always say one more thing, right, at the end of the conversation. And, the doctor's treating you for a backache when, you have this other area that's going to kill you next week, So, like when you go in, it's like, what are the most important things to talk to your doctor about? And can you have an AI, a patient AI, that focuses on, these are what we think are the most, being the most educated patient, can then engage with the doctor to make sure that you're getting the best care possible.
I say this every week. I'm probably going to have to retitle the show if we're just getting started, because we're just getting started into this, but we're almost out of time. We're coming up toward the end of the show. I've got one real quick question I have a lot of quick questions for you, but one real quick question for you. What surprised you most in all your research and all your studies and all the things that have happened? What's one thing that surprised you the most?
There's a group of people that are really, concerned and scared about AI because they haven't been educated on how to use it properly. Like right now here in the United States, only about 7% of people use AI, every day. So, maybe I should have realized that before, because, it takes a while for, even, in 2011, 1 billion people having smartphones. So what surprised me is that while it's grown very quickly, in the knowledge worker community, the rest of the population doesn't use AI very much.
Right.
And so that's kind of surprised me. And then the question is how can we amplify the people that need it the most? And that's surprised me. And then it's an area of concern.
Well, and that's what I'm working on, is helping people become more open to accepting that, or just at least learning to use it, because it's coming one way or the other in our lives. Doug, how can people get a hold of you, and how can they get a hold of your book?
Yeah. So the book is on Amazon, and it's an Audible as well. And so go to Tech-Powered Healing, the Future of Healthcare, Future of Medicine in the Age of AI. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I write a lot, post a lot about it. In fact, I created an AI Dwight Eisenhower because talking about politics is like I'm reading about the 50s. And so how do we, if I had an Eisenhower to solve some of the problems, he kept us out of nuclear war in the 50s. And so we need great leaders in the 2020s. And so, I wrote about that. So I write on LinkedIn on this article and many other articles on AI and the future of mankind.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for all you're doing. And thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. We go back about 4 years, I guess, during the pandemic, brought us together. Our paths might not have met if it wasn't for that. But I'd love to have you back, and hopefully Dr. Castro will join you again.
Yes, I hope that could work out.
Yeah, no, that would be absolutely so. Appreciate it very much, Doug. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Thank you for being part of Googlization Nation. We will be back next week. Actually, we'll be back tomorrow with our show about At the Corner of Main Street and Wall Street. So join us to hear about the convergence of politics, the economy, and technology. And until next week, don't let the shift hit your plans.
Thanks for watching Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Be sure to listen to the podcast and follow us on YouTube. This show was produced and edited by Hilton Productions.